Okay, it's now 7 o'clock. I call the meeting of the Leominster School Committee on Monday, June 15th to order. If everyone can please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will start off with our Leominster School Committee statement. The committee represents the needs of all Leominster Public School students and places their interests above all others. We will exercise leadership, adhere to our protocols, and base our decision upon a reasoned assessment of all available information. We will advocate for each of our schools and support high-quality public education in Leominster. So having said that, I'm going to open it up for public comment. So if you would like to speak, please unmute yourself. We ask that you keep your comments to 1 minute, please. State your name and address for the record. Would anybody like to address the committee? Please come forward, unmute yourself.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you state your name and address?
Okay, good. My name is Larry Zawaro, and I live at 8 Brentwood Drive in Leominster.
Great, thank you. What would you like to say to me?
And I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. Unfortunately, we are now in a time of crisis, and it's just very disturbing with the budget that's come out, or the proposed budget. And I know we're all sitting waiting for the state. Just to get, I thought some information that would be useful for you.
I'm just going to stop for 1 second. Larry, could you hold on 1 second? Could everyone please mute themselves so we can all hear Larry speak, please? I know somebody whose last two digits are 92. If you could mute yourself while Larry's speaking, that would be greatly appreciated. Go ahead, Larry.
Okay, sorry. I thought some information would be useful. Boston Public Schools is projecting a $24 million deficit, and they only laid off 24 teachers. Fitchburg, Gardner, Littleton, Haverhill, and there are a few others that have zero cuts. Leominster Public Schools, 6 million and 132 teachers, and who knows how far deep more of that's going to come. And also to something that should be addressed by the superintendent should be how many cuts were made to the central office staff where most of your salary and wages exist. People like Tammy Robichaud, Pam Julesonette, Kate Himmer, Kristen McGeckern, those are the teachers that Michael, my son, has had in his years in Leominster School, have done excellent work. People like Bob Landry, Brenda LeMay, Tom Kanakia, all these teachers who are still going to be there next year when they return to school. What kind of message is this sending to the staff and to the students? They're going to be all just no hope whatsoever if you were open school tomorrow with the current staffing in place. And it's just really sad. And my final statement is that the school department and the city, specifically the mayor, need to get in a room, lock the door, and work out the large divide that has occurred for many, many years. It's not just to you people; it's to many committees and the mayor over many years. It's not good for the culture of the city. It's not good for the reputation of the city, and it just brings Leominster Public Schools down. And I hope that will happen. And one final thing is the net school spending, according to the Massachusetts Department of Education. From 2008 to 2018, the average net school spending above or below was averaging in Leominster $899,333 for 11 years. 6 of those 11 years only have been under $500,000. 3 out of the 11 were over $1 million. And the only year that it was over $1 million was 2017 and 2018 and 2008. And the low point was 2011, where net school spending was below minus $448,745. I really hope there's a solution out there. I know none of us want to see kids suffer and schools suffer And I know there's a compromise out there. And I thank you for your time. Good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address the committee? Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, this is Carrie Nelson. I live at 95 Smith Street in Leominster. Thank you so much. I just want to give a big kudos to Larry Zuaro because he said a lot of what was on my mind. I think that overall, I would like to see, like Mr. Zuaro said, the city take a very proactive approach to how it looks at education 365 days in the year. I don't really know how we get there, but I think as a community, we really need to work on that so that we don't get to this inevitable crisis mode at the end of the year. I understand that this year is different with the pandemic and all of the additional financial challenges that we face as a country and a state. I also, to Mr. Zuaro's point, want to echo what he said. I am not in favor for spending the least amount possible in our schools. I believe that every child should get what they need to be successful in our community. And I think that we should get out of what the data shows as far as being that 5% that gives the least. I think we can do a lot better. I also like to bring to the forefront, besides the teachers, that we want to attract a lot of talent. And if people are getting laid off en masse every year, we won't be, and it's going to be harder to cling to the talent we have. And lastly, I just want to say that I just want to speak up for the needs that are already out there regarding special education, English language learners, and technical education. As you know, technical education students can't even apply to Monty Tech and Fitchburg because Leominster, quote unquote, has CTE. And, we're very nervous about what CTE looks like, how it's being supported, how it's financially being supported. And if we move forward with online learning, I'm very concerned and want to bring to the committee's attention how we can do a better job for English language learners, how we can do a better job for special education students, and any other student that has an issue with executive functioning that has difficulty navigating online learning. We've got to come together as a community. I know that myself and many other people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to address the committee? Please unmute yourself and give us your name and address, please. One last and final time, if anybody else would like to address the committee during the open forum, please do so now by unmuting yourself and stating your name and address. Having no one come forward, we're going to close this portion of our meeting. We're going to move on to communications, Superintendent.
There are no communications at this time.
Thank you. And then we'll move right on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, so this is our last meeting of the FY20 school year, and we're usually very excited to congratulate and celebrate all our students and the work that's been done, and we've been doing that. Each one of our schools they're holding all sorts of celebrations. Today we had Johnny Appleseed 5th grade celebration up at Skyview and Samoset on Friday. So it's still rich in our community, but it's falling on a time that feels very dark based on the actions that we had to take. And I feel like we are in the midst of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so as we conclude the school year, I don't think it can go by the wayside without many thank yous. So to my staff, I need to thank you for always being the ultimate professionals. We are facing a very dark period, and like many districts, it's uncertain where we're headed. You are forever the heroes to many, many in this city, and you have exemplified the definition of role models. You are the key You, teachers, are the key to our students' success and achievement. I want to say thank you to our students. Thank you for being resilient, for putting up with all of this. You have been changed and your futures look so different. You are so bright and you are so beautiful and your potential is limitless. I want you to continue to be kind and use that kindness for good in this world. And then lastly, it doesn't go without saying to our families, they deserve medals of honor for all they've done to keep education in Leominster moving. Although none of you signed up to be your child's teacher for 13 weeks, you stepped up and it is so appreciated. So in closing the FY20 school year, I salute all of our community. I wish for better days ahead. We need to fight for better days ahead. And it's important that everybody stay tuned for updates because we are an ever evolving district. So thank you, and you will be hearing more.
Thank you, Paula. So now we're going to move into the reopening updates that you have for us.
Yes, and so this is very, very preliminary. So this is about the reopening of schools. There has been guidance out for summer school. There has been guidance on different levels of daycare and some recreational programs. And each guidance is very specific to that audience. This week, we have been told by the Commissioner of Education by Friday, and he really likes to do things on Friday, he is going to announce the initial plan for the reopening of schools, and I just say for September. It is an initial plan, and he has laid out some of the guidelines, so at least we can start thinking about this. Because the plan is prescribed, it's detailed. He is hoping to have 2 models, which all schools in the Commonwealth must follow for the startup, unless there are extenuating circumstances. If you are in a district that never had COVID, you could make an argument for one plan or the other. If it's still very high impact in your community, you can apply to DESE for another plan. But it sounds right now that it will be 2 models prescribed and followed through until we can test all of this out. Some of the information that we're getting is that there are safety updates. DESE is working very closely with the medical professions and assessing the COVID and the impact to children at a different age. And so the guidance will be very specific, and they wanted to tell us it may look different than what people are hearing right now. So we can't assume that we are going to have to be, let's say, all in masks or surrounded by plexiglass. He said the guidance will serve its purpose for the school setting, which for us is, it doesn't seem that far off, but it's only 2.5 months off. So we're hoping to have some control over that. And we are already working with our local Board of Health because we will need to move hand in hand as this unfolds. So we're waiting to see what the guidance around safety is, and that should be announced as well. He also spoke to transportation considerations. That is another big question. Sometimes we have 50, 60, 70, 80 students at a time on a school bus. So the initial thought when all of this was happening that only 12 to 13 students could be on a bus at a time. We're a district of 6,200 students, so we're really going to have to do some work around our ridership on that one. And the big piece is we will be surveying all of our families and our community to see what works for them. There will be some option within these plans and what works best for everyone. Right now, staff is going to be essential in this plan and how we roll forward. But we need to say to families, who needs transportation? who will be sending their children back, who may want to stay in a remote learning environment. So remote learning will have a component regardless. So the school department must get every child K through 12 connected with a device one-to-one. And a device is only as good as the connection. So we really need to find out who needs what. So it's going to be critical that families update their contact information. We will be reaching out to them periodically, and we will have to do large campaigning to make sure that we can accommodate whatever model Commissioner Riley puts forward. But regardless, we need to make sure that connectivity is never an issue again for the children of Leominster. So it feels better that there's a plan, and the plan is coming. And the second we know about it, we will be reaching out. So we're going to have to work citywide to make sure that we can open our schools, get our families back to some level of routine, let our families go back to work. We all have lovely Grammies and Grampies that have been trying to help out, and friends, and we want our schools open. So more information coming, and hopefully by the end of the week, we will be able to seal at least the initial plan.
So Superintendent, it would behoove families that if they, for instance, we may have given one family one Chromebook, but they might have 3 children. So we would need to know that they need 2 more Chromebooks or whatever to make sure that we are getting a device in each child's hand, as well as needing to know whether they have access to internet services, because clearly Chromebooks will not be helpful unless they have internet.
Exactly. And our families were wonderful. If families had 3 or 4 children, we were able to give 2 devices, but every child really needs their own device. The word moving forward is we have to be very nimble. So trying to share a device and staying caught up and staying connected with classrooms and zooming in and zooming out, whatever the work, it was really difficult for many of our families without having the one-to-one. It absorbed a lot of time. So we will be seeking that information.
Okay. The other thing I think it's important to also mention is our food service Chartwell's did a wonderful job providing meals, breakfast and lunch 7 days a week for all free and reduced lunch children. And that will continue throughout the summer. So I wanted to make sure that the word is out there for families that we will be able to continue to provide food for them throughout the summer for free and reduced lunch children.
Yes, we have sealed that, so that will definitely happen.
Thank you. Does anybody else in the committee have a comment that they would like to make at this time before we move on to the superintendent's evaluation? Okay. Again, I just echo the superintendent's, just recognizing the incredible work that the entire school department has done, that parents and other caregivers and extended family members and friends have done to support the students and, of course, the students themselves. So I do appreciate that. Melissa, you had something to say?
Yeah, just some of the discussion over the last few weeks I've heard from staff are that a lot of the staff don't necessarily have enough technology and capability. Either they have one computer, but 2 or 3 kids of their own at home. Is there any sort of resources potentially available or being thought of, I guess, as we budget for technology for staffing as well?
Yes. So it's not going to work if the end user isn't able to access. So we definitely are looking at also to put some professional development around, because if you think about it, teachers on a dime all of a sudden had to become technology experts. And there was this assumption that it was going to work. So we are definitely investing in the professional development. We all need it. So we will make sure that teachers have updated so that they can do their job completely.
Thank you, Melissa. That was a good question. Anybody else from the committee would like to make a comment at this time? All right, seeing no one else coming forward, Superintendent, we'll move on to your evaluation.
Great. So this was tough. In the midst, I don't know when we're going to be able to stop saying this. In the midst of a worldwide pandemic, we were on a trajectory that had goals that were so tight and concise and aligned with student needs. And we had just dropped in a 5-year strategic plan that had spoken about equity and access for all students, for programming growth for all students and staff. And then on March 16, the world for us really stopped. And so what I gave forward to you as a memo is no less than Paula's pivot plan. On Friday, March 13th, at the end of the school day, when teachers went home, they had no idea that they would not be returning to the FY20 school year. Their materials were left in their room. Everything they owned just left, and we had to seal up our buildings. If you look at the memo, I thought the meme, the picture, the visual just screamed to what happened. Our expectation was this straight shot towards student achievement. We had tight, measurable, attainable goals that everyone in the district was working towards. And then we went into sort of a crisis mode. We were shut down for, 3 weeks, and then ever evolving recommendations, let's say, from DESE. So what we had to do was really create a new roadmap for Leominster to make sure that our students stayed engaged, that learning was continuing to happen, that staff was meeting the needs that they had set forth as well. So I had these 3 overarching ideas. And the first one was we had to make swift decision-making because the rules of engagement were changing every day. And sometimes they changed within the same day. And so we wanted to make sure that everybody was safe, first and foremost. We did have members of our staff who did contract COVID, and we had to handle that. We had to shut down certain buildings and take care of their needs. We had to look at fiscal responsibility and make sure that we kept our staff whole. We made sure that payroll and personnel was kept up to date and modified whenever necessary. And a large issue was around food insecurity. We serve over 4,500 meals a day, free and reduced meals. And so how are we going to get food to children? But we did it. And then communication, make sure everybody was on the same page as we went forward. And so my second goal had to switch to being able to pivot, and pivot very quickly and pivot often. The Department of Ed shut us down for about 3 weeks and said there will be absolutely no teaching because we thought we were coming back. We were going to clean up and we were going to come back. And then that expectation changed. And then 3 weeks later, all of a sudden we had a new set of standards that we had to absorb, start to teach, start to communicate. We shifted needs and resources as best we could to get things out. And remember, we're talking about a 9 to 13 week period. We also had to keep the school department completely running. The buildings may have been physically closed, but no department ever stopped working. Enrollment happened, IEP meetings happened, staff meetings happened, principals meetings. Nothing stopped, but we had to use a lot of caution and prepare ourselves for that. You name it, whatever normally happens in the school department, that did not stop, nor did it take a break. And then the last piece was we did have to capture learning. We needed to make sure that we have some lever going into FY21. How are we going to communicate, where our students are, where we pick this up and we run? Because I have faith that our teachers are going to get this done. They've been talking about how to address students in September. They're ready for it. We're actually, it's tough to say, but we can't wait to give an assessment just to see where our students are and have some of that knowledge. But we've created a feedback system, new report cards, again, the power standards and devices. So at the end of all this, we are still left with reflection on, so did we learn something? And what did we do well and what did we not do so well? We need that information. What or who might we have missed or not thought about? What opportunities from this experience can we create? Some real good things came out of this, and we don't want it to go away. So we have to take a look at that. So have we left out any of our stakeholders in this equation? And what leadership strategy can I bring forward to make sure that the best learning happened from this experience? And so we keep going on and reflecting, because as we move forward, we really need a strategic approach should anything like this ever happen to us again, because we cannot let the students down. We have committed to several layers of different educational plans. So whatever the state throws at us at the end of the week, we're ready. We're excited. We want to pick up the ball and start running. So our school system is ready. It will be solid, and our students will achieve. So I present my last pivot plan of the FY20 school year. And I would appreciate any feedback, any questions. It's been quite a complex learning experience and also intriguing. So I thank you for your time and your candor.
Thank you, Paula. Would anybody in the community like to ask Paula a question or make a comment on her summation? Please unmute yourself if you would like to.
Hi, Eileen, I would. Sue?
Great. Go ahead, Sue.
Okay. No, Paula, I just want to thank you for all the efforts you put into this year. I can't imagine the changes. You weren't anticipating this. This was a totally different road. And it's kind of like when you're a special ed parent and you have a child that doesn't meet the same road that you were hoping. And you guys were put into that situation. And I really feel you did a great job, you, the staff. I applaud you all. And, I think the best thing we can do is, as a community, just build on that and move forward. And as you said, we did learn some things that are good. We'll retain that positive, but we as a community need to, come together, get through this and go forward. But thank you for your staff, for everything that you've done to get us through this.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Would anybody else from the committee? Michael?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I was there on that Friday, March 13th. And so I witnessed firsthand how decisive Paula was, especially she was on a conference call with other superintendents. And I think I was very impressed with our superintendent relative to the others. So I think that's been important, that she's been decisive. We've moved forward. So I'm looking forward to keeping that up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else from the committee like to say anything at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Go ahead, Ron.
I'd like to say that I have been very much impressed with Paula, because when March 13th started, it was basically, and it still is, an unending project. You never know what's going to happen at the end of the day. We know maybe how the beginning of the day is, but we have no idea. It's literally a moving target. And she's always been very upfront, and she's been literally on the spot doing what she has to do, and even more, and above all, she's I I can't say enough. I agree with Sue and I agree with Mike. She's been like a revelation, you know. That's all.
Thank you, Ron. Would anybody else like from the committee to say anything? Okay, not having anybody else come forward. Thank you so much, Paula. This has been challenging times, and we do really appreciate your leadership and your attention to detail, and really, trying to look at the big picture all at the same time. It hasn't been an easy journey, but we appreciate that you've been able to get us through some very difficult times.
Thank you. And again, an incredible staff. Incredible what people have done and what they've done, learned and moved forward with. So kudos to the team. Really, kudos to our team. I'm very proud of the Leominster Public School teachers, and I'm proud to call myself a teacher.
Great, thank you. All right, without any other comments, we're going to move forward. So just to sort of wrap things up with the evaluation, Christine, you're going to send us the new evaluation form. Everybody's going to fill it out, and I would give people like a 2-week turnaround to get it back to me. And then Sue, Isabel, and myself will compile all the evaluations and come up with, one evaluation that pulls together everyone's thoughts. Okay.
I thought the evaluation was in the packet. I got the initial form, and then those 2 other pieces were from a conference I think Ronnie and Sue went to.
Okay.
Yeah, so both are in there.
Both are in there? Okay.
And a list
don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, and a list of the goals was in there too for the first half of the year.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. So if everybody can refer back to their packet and, get back to us in 2 weeks with your ratings overall and your comments, and then the subcommittee will take a look and pull everything together into one document. So thank you. So now we're going to move over to approval of minutes. Ron, would you like to make a motion?
Oops. Am I unmuted? Yes, I am.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of June 1st, 2020.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Brandon, thank you. Any comments, omissions, errors?
I have one small typo on the second page under the remote summer school program, summer school plan. It just says the program ill instead of the program will. Just the W's missing. That's all.
Perfect. Thank you.
Almost, Chris. Almost.
So close.
Close.
All right. If no one else has anything, all those in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So then we're going to move on to subcommittee reports, and we'll start with policy because that's really easy.
Yeah.
Ron, is there anything to report?
No, there's nothing to report from policy. We haven't had a meeting.
During this whole pandemic.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if we're going to be having, when's the next day for us to have a meeting. We'll have to see how it plays out.
Right. Okay, thank you. Finance Subcommittee, Michael, would you like to give us an update, please?
Yes, we met tonight at 6. We had one agenda item, which is transfers to balance out the budget for the year. So we will be making a motion to approve transferring $537,000 from the salaries and expenses side. From the salary and wages side over to the expenses side. It will go in line 5,200. It will be used, applied towards the fourth quarter health insurance bill. Do you want to do that now or finish, Eileen?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, why don't we do that now?
All right. So I would like to make a motion that we approve transferring the $537,000 we have left in wages and salaries to line 5200 in expenses to be applied to the fourth quarter health insurance bill.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Oh,
Okay. We've got 3 seconds. I think Sue had her hand up first. So I have a first and second. Any comments? All right. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Anything
So-
else, Mike?
I'll just mention that we don't have the final number for the health insurance bill. The real number comes like the first week of July, but we do have an estimate from the city, and it should be pretty accurate. I just wanted to mention that when we did our revised budget in October, we already had at least our first quarter, maybe second quarter bills from the city. So the health insurance budget number that we approved in October in our revised budget came out very close to the total. We're short $8,000. We're off by that little bit. So that shows how well Melanie did, I believe, of predicting what the total would be. And of course, $8,000 in a $74 million budget that's an easy thing to cover, and we've done so.
Great. We appreciate that. Thank you. Anything else before we move on?
Eileen, I think Dean was trying to speak.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Dean. I didn't see you.
Say it again.
Go ahead, Dean.
Yes, for some reason I wasn't going through. On the minutes, I had sent Chris an email earlier today. And I think when we voted on the budget May 4th, we were doing it based on the governor's original budget. And I think the minutes reflected the legislator. We were working off the legislator's numbers, but in fact, they have never provided numbers and they still haven't given us any. And I think it's important to reflect that if we were using any numbers to base our budget vote on, it was the governor's budget that came out in January 22nd.
So,
Correct.
correct.
So I just
The
think
budget was based on the Chapter 70 numbers were based on the governor's proposal.
Yes, and I think in our minutes, and I think it's important that we correct that because somebody may look back later and say, well, how did you vote on that? How were you voting on the budget May 4th when the legislatures hadn't given out any numbers yet? So I think it's just best to let the record reflect that we were doing it based on the governor's budget.
Are you talking about the minutes we were looking at right now or minutes from that previous meeting?
Oh, this is the previous meeting for May 4th, and I had sent an email to Chris pointing that out, and I'm just bringing it up now, and I just think it's important to at least put a footnote in there that we were using the numbers based on the governor's budget, which was January 22nd, and that's pre-COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. That's just a simple modification.
All right.
So
Thank
in
you,
our
Dean.
minutes, it reflects. It just in our minutes, it just reflects the legislator that we were using Chapter 70 numbers from the legislature, but we weren't.
Okay. Thank you, Dean, for bringing that up. Chris, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say I can do that. I can add that it was the numbers was from the governor's budget that was came out on January 22nd.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Anything else under policy, Mike?
Oh, well, I don't do policy. Finance.
I mean, policy. I'm sorry. I meant
I was
finance.
gonna say, wow, that's it. That's fun.
I know. Finance.
That's it as far as what was on the agenda. Of course, the school department's portion of the city budget hearing is on Wednesday.
Yes.
So we're working on being ready for that. Other than that,
Perfect.
there's nothing to report.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're going to move on to action items. Superintendent, we have the vote on the interim business manager.
Yes, after contract negotiations with Melanie Michael, I would like to ask for a motion to set the salary for the FY21 school year for interim business administrator for $108,000.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
I'll second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. This is time for discussion. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to say at this time?
This is Dean. I
Yeah.
just had a question. So that was amicable. I mean, that was agreed upon by Melanie and the superintendent.
Yes.
And how long is the appointment good for?
It's for a 1-year interim position.
Okay. So we won't look till next school year for a permanent?
We usually post in January or February.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. If no one else has any discussion points, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Welcome, Melanie. We appreciate all that you've done for our district and look forward to working with you this coming school year. And we've already done the approval of transfers. So now we're on to old and new business. We have school enrollment, Superintendent.
It's still on the rise. We're very, very busy. Parents want their kids in schools and they want them in the Leominster Public Schools. So our PIC Center has been extremely busy. All screenings for kindergarten will be held once our buildings are open and there is daily communication happening.
Excellent. What about school choice?
We are not moving forward at this time until we even have a model or know what our current enrollment is. So we might have to come back to the committee on that one, depending on what we're handed.
Right. So, Chris, can you keep these things on the agenda for us going forward? Because we should revisit this, each meeting.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. I have a few things. One is I just wanted to recognize that tonight's Glenn's last meeting and he will be retiring. So we wish him a fond farewell and good luck, and hopefully he'll enjoy his retirement. So we appreciate all of his hard work. The other thing that I wanted to just caution people is the use of social media and to make sure that folks are sort of being aware of possible conflict of interest of what you're posting, what you say as a person, as opposed to what you're representing as a school committee member, are two very different things and really need to be very distinct and different. So I just caution folks, I don't want anybody to have, sort of an ethics violation based on what they're, posting. So please just keep that in your forefront when you're using that in a public forum. The other issue that I wanted to just ask was, Dean, I don't know if you can help us understand this. I know there was some transportation savings, and I'm not sure whether we would be able to utilize that money to do put it towards Chromebooks or something like that we desperately need. I know at one point you had thought you were going to be able to assist us with Chromebooks, but that, didn't come to fruition. So I was just wondering if we would be able to use any of the money from the transportation savings to, put towards getting every child a Chromebook in the district.
I would very much like that. The only problem is, I think Glenn can explain better than I, that, and we did touch on this in the previous meeting, the transportation company, even though they didn't provide transportation, there were some carrying costs that they felt they are due, and other communities have settled with them anywhere from 25 or 30% all the way up to 50%. And Glenn, and I don't believe we've settled that at all, Glenn. And I think the last letter that I saw that came from our city solicitor's office was to the transportation company saying, based on our contract, we're not obligated to do anything. However, if we're glad to open up conversations with them. But I think their thinking is that they were prepared to they were set up, they had bus drivers, mechanics, and there was a certain carrying cost for them, even though they didn't, we weren't making use of their transportation. So that is, as of right now, Glenn, is it safe to say that's not resolved yet?
Well, we're waiting for Glenn to come on. I thought there's Glenn. I thought we were also waiting for the state to sort of come up with sort of a Rubik's or an amount, and I don't know if that ever happened. Go ahead, Glenn.
The mayor is correct. We have not paid for any transportation services since March 16th. That we only pay for services that have actually been rendered. And as the mayor said, the city's attorney determined that we only pay for services rendered. In the intervening 3 months, the legislature has approved authorization, actually requesting that school districts enter into negotiation with their transportation providers to ensure that they can meet their fixed expenses. So they'll still be able to open and provide services whenever schools reopen. And in that regard, many districts have agreed to pay a portion. Actually, some are paying the entire balance because it was budgeted. Particularly transportation services provided to special education students. First Student entered negotiations with a consortium of districts who agreed to pay 35% of the total cost, representing their fixed expenses to keep them rolling so they'll be available to reopen as appears now in the fall. I don't believe any of the cities have agreed to make that payment. But in good faith, we should at least talk to our vendors because there's a potential for litigation. That if we simply say we're not paying you, that we're not even willing to sit at the table, there may be a concern about good faith. And clearly, we want to make sure that vans and buses are available however we want them configured when schools reopen in the fall. And the mayor's office and Dean and Protect has emailed me today regarding the proposed contract for all SPED transportation services starting July 1st. And we are about a half an inch away from finalizing that agreement effective July 1st. That will save us hundreds of thousands of dollars next year and millions of dollars over the next 5 years. But we're working closely. I think we have worked very closely with Wendy Weeks, Greg Chapdelaine, and Dean in that regard. In the same regard, we're trying to finalize next year's contract with Chartwells because they've done a great job. But if they start serving food on July 1st, we have to have an agreement on how much we're going to pay them. And also note that the net cost to the school district through all of the food services we provide is less than zero. We generate money on our reimbursements to put into a revolving fund that pays for all capital expenses related to food service. So there is no cost to the operating budget for food services provided all school year and again through the summer.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. So that's something as far as the transportation, I'm presuming Melanie's going to be taking over from here, shortly to sit down and hopefully negotiate something so we can know what our actual cost will be.
So Eileen, just so we don't get off topic, but so we would need to know if there was any settlement with the bus company, and then if there was anything left, then what we would use that funding for, and it would be advantageous to do a carryover with the comptroller's office, but you're going to need some sort of a purchase order or whatever. The second thing, I'm not sure when at the end of the new and old business, but we did a survey with the school department about a year ago on some of the conditions of the sidewalks, mostly around the schools. And there were some spots of real concern that we had brought up. And so we have a list. So this summer, we're going to try to get as many of those sidewalks repaired. They are a safety issue for us and the visitors who visit the school when we have events. So we're going to move as quick as we can this summer, get as many done, and so that we'll be ready for school opening.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Safety is obviously extremely important. So,
and that's not from the school budget. That's money that's been already allocated, and the work was bidded.
Great. Excellent news. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to add for old or new business? So I guess my sort of parting comment would be, because I know we had people speak earlier, is that we value all of our staff, and ideally we hope that, in an ideal world, everyone would retain their jobs or be hired back. But because of contractual agreements, we need to plan for the worst and hope for the best. And that's what we're doing. But I think it's going to be a very fluid process throughout the summer until we really figure out, what Chapter 70 funds we're going to be giving, and what our net school spending costs, are going to be, or contribution will be. So just, to let folks know that everyone here is very concerned about retention of staff and being able to meet the needs of all of our students. But right now it's very difficult for us to know what that's going to look like. So anybody else have anything else they'd like to say? Melissa?
I was just going to add really quickly, in addition to my concerns about our staff and our kids, and my thoughts are with everyone. I did get an email from Creative Choices that they're going to be opening for a few weeks this summer. I have a very excited 7-year-old in my house. So for those who have used them in the past, reach out if you are thinking about using them in the future, because there is limited is what I've been.
Great. Thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else have anything else they would like to add? So if not, I need a motion to adjourn.
I just wanted to say one thing. I wanted to just wish Glenn good luck in his retirement. And we didn't always see eye to eye, but I respect him and his value as a business manager for the schools. So good luck, Glenn.
Yes, thank you, Glenn. I learned a lot from you.
Good luck, Glenn.
Yep. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Now can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn. Subito presto.
And Sue seconded?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. All right, thank you, everyone.